Ladies, let's go there. Right now, we're going to talk about something that every woman has thought about, experienced confusion around, maybe even felt shame about, something most people either joke about, whisper about, or completely ignore. Sex, not sex in movies, not sex in some magazine quiz that asks if you're doing it enough, and not sex as a performance, a chore, or a reward. I mean ***, real sex. Raw, intimate, soul-shaking sex, and more than that ***, the fact that women need it. Not should want it, not occasionally enjoy it if everything is perfect, but need it. Deeply as part of who we are. Let me guess, that sentence made some of you squirm. Some of you just crossed your arms. A few of you are already hearing the voices of culture and religion and upbringing screaming, "That's not true. That's inappropriate. That's selfish. That's not what good women do." And that's exactly why this conversation needs to happen. Because somewhere along the way, the message got rewritten. We were born into these bodies full of energy, power, and desire. Little girls who danced when music played. Girls who laughed with their full bellies. Girls who ran barefoot and free and felt the wind between their legs and thought, "Yes, this is mine. This is joy. This is alive." But then the world started whispering, "Cross your legs. Don't wear that. Be quiet. Be careful. Be modest. Be appropriate. Be less." And over time, those whispers became beliefs, and those beliefs became patterns. And now we've got generations of women walking around completely disconnected from one of the most important, natural, and powerful parts of themselves, their sexual energy. Now I want to be very clear. This is not about sex for someone else. This is not about pleasing a partner. This is not about being good in bed. This is not about frequency or techniques or lingerie or how to make someone else happy. This is about you, because here's the truth. Sex is about identity, ownership, connection, power, pleasure, mental health, hormones, confidence, control. Sex is one of the few experiences that connects your mind, your body, and your soul in real time. It is not just physical. It is emotional, psychological, neurological, even spiritual. It is creative energy. It is life energy. And when women suppress that connection, they start to shrink. They start to live in their heads instead of their hearts. They feel exhausted but disconnected. They give and give until they're depleted, and they forget what it means to feel. We normalize this. Oh, it's just aging. Oh, it's just marriage. Oh, it's hormones. Oh, it's the kids, the job, the schedule. Yes, those things are real. But they are not excuses to stop living. They are not reasons to stop feeling. You want more energy, more passion, more confidence. You want to stop scrolling on your phone at night and wondering where the magic went. You want to walk through your day with a little swing in your hips and a secret in your smile. Connect to your sexuality, because guess what? Your body hasn't forgotten. Your soul hasn't forgotten. It's just waiting for you to come back. And before we go any further, let's bust one more myth. Women don't have low libidos. Women have low desire for bad sex, for unfulfilling sex, for pressure, for obligation, for performative, disconnected sex that feels like one more thing on the list. But you start giving women sex that's about their pleasure, their curiosity, their exploration, their full body being alive. You start giving women permission to be messy, expressive, honest. You won't be able to stop them. Because we are built for connection, we are built for intimacy, and we are built for joy. Now listen, I know some of you have trauma. Some of you were never taught that your body belonged to you. Some of you have been touched without consent, or used or ignored, or made to feel like your body is dirty. And I see you, I honor you, but please hear me on this. Your healing is also your power, and reclaiming your body, your pleasure, and your sexuality is not just healing for you. It's healing for generations. It's healing for every daughter and sister and friend and woman you come in contact with. We need women who are whole. We need women who are embodied. We need women who can stand in front of the mirror and say, "This is my body. This is my story. This is my right." And not for a man, not for society, for herself. When you connect to that part of you, you show up differently. In business, in relationships, in your parenting, in your boundaries, in your goals, in your ability to feel. You know what makes a woman magnetic? It's not her looks. It's not her clothes. It's aliveness. It's the fire inside. It's the woman who has claimed herself. That's the kind of woman who walks into a room and you feel her before she even says a word. So if you've ever been told that your desire is too much, they were wrong. If you've ever believed that your pleasure comes last, they were wrong. If you've ever felt broken or numb, or like maybe this is just how it is, they were wrong. Because you are not broken, you are not too much, you are not alone, you are powerful, you are sensual, you are wired for connection and capable of extraordinary joy, and it's time to stop apologizing. Time to stop shrinking. Time to stop pretending you don't want what you want. Time to come home to yourself, because women don't just want sex. Women need it for themselves, for their wholeness, for their happiness, for their lives, and we don't whisper about it anymore. We say it out loud, we own it, and we rise. Women's sexual desire is natural and necessary. It is not optional, shameful, or a bonus when everything else is done. It is a core part of who we are. Yet for centuries, society has done everything it can to suppress, minimize, and distort this truth. From early childhood, girls are taught through subtle and not so subtle messaging that their bodies are to be hidden, protected, judged, or used, but rarely celebrated or understood. Desire, for women, is often framed as something dangerous, something that should be carefully managed, something that only arises in the presence of a man, and only then under certain conditions that meet the standards of propriety. This false framing has disconnected countless women from their own bodies and instincts. Women are not taught to listen to themselves, to feel the pulse of their desire, or to understand what turns them on, not just sexually, but emotionally, mentally, energetically. Instead, they are taught to please, to accommodate, to endure, to perform. In many cases, women aren't even given the basic language to explore or articulate what they want. The result is an entire population of people walking around half, numb, overfunctioning, and chronically unfulfilled, wondering why they feel disconnected or like something is missing, even if they've checked every box of success. Desire is not a frivolous extra. It is a signal from the deepest parts of ourselves. It's not just about wanting sex. It's about feeling alive, wanted, and whole. When a woman is connected to her sexual energy, she carries herself differently. She speaks differently. She relates to the world differently. Her confidence becomes rooted in something unshakable, not just external approval or validation, but internal knowing. That connection breeds power. Not dominance, but personal power. The kind that says, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I'm not afraid of my own fire. Biologically, women are wired for deep pleasure and connection. The clitoris exists for one reason, pleasure. No other function, and yet it is the only organ that most people are taught to ignore. Studies on female arousal and pleasure were underfunded, overlooked, or dismissed for decades. In medicine, women's pain is often minimized and their pleasure rarely discussed. In media, their sexuality is either hyper-sexualized or erased altogether. The system has never prioritized female desire, and that wasn't an accident, because a woman who is fully in touch with what she wants is harder to control. She sets boundaries, she makes bold choices, she stops apologizing. Desire is not just physical, it's tied to creativity, intuition, and emotional health. When women are in touch with what they desire, in bed, in life, in love, they create differently. They speak up more, they advocate for themselves, they stop shrinking to fit into spaces that never made room for their full selves. That connection to sexuality becomes a connection to power, agency, and voice. It ripples outward into careers, families, communities, and relationships. But when that desire is buried, ignored, or repressed, everything else starts to dull too. The color fades, the enthusiasm fades. The spark goes out. That's not a coincidence. Too many women are told that sexual desire fades with age, with motherhood, with stress, with the passage of time. And yes, hormones shift, circumstances change. But the truth is, desire doesn't disappear, it just goes underground when it's not fed. When women are disconnected from their bodies, constantly living in a state of fight or flight, and prioritizing everyone else's needs above their own, their desire gets muted. It doesn't mean it's gone. It means it's been buried under layers of conditioning and exhaustion. The good news is that it can be uncovered, reclaimed, revived. To do that, women need safety, not just physical safety, but emotional safety. They need spaces where they're not judged for wanting more. They need conversations that normalize desire as something human and vital. They need information, tools, and encouragement to explore what pleasure looks like for them without shame. And they need to know that there is nothing wrong with them for wanting sex, for craving intimacy, for longing to feel alive in their bodies. This is not about being sexual for someone else's benefit. This is not about keeping a partner happy. This is not about performing femininity in the way society expects. This is about listening inward, learning to trust your own signals, reconnecting to what brings you joy, excitement, pleasure, and meaning. Women's sexual desire is a compass. It points them toward what matters, what they long for, what they're here to experience. To ignore it is to ignore a vital part of being alive. To honor it is to begin remembering who you really are. Sexuality is tied to identity, confidence, and emotional well-being. For women, especially, this connection is often underestimated, misunderstood, or completely neglected. We talk about confidence in terms of posture, speech, and presence. We talk about emotional well-being in terms of mindfulness, therapy, or stress management. But very rarely do we speak openly about how deeply intertwined all of these are with a woman's relationship to her sexuality. And yet, when a woman is connected to her sexual self, when she feels entitled to her pleasure, clear about her boundaries, and rooted in her body, she carries a level of grounded confidence that cannot be faked. Sexuality is not a separate compartment of life. It's not something that only gets activated in private or with a partner. It influences how a woman moves through the world, how she sees herself, how she shows up in conversations, how she sets limits, and how she navigates relationships, both personal and professional. It affects her sense of worth, her expression of femininity, her emotional range, and her internal compass. When a woman feels repressed, judged, or numb in her sexual life, it often leaks into every other area. It can show up as insecurity, resentment, disconnection, or an inability to fully trust others or herself. This relationship with sexuality begins early. Before a woman ever has her first sexual experience, she has already received messages through family, culture, religion, and media about what it means to be desirable, what's acceptable to want, and what kind of woman is good. Some are told to be pure, modest, and passive. Others are encouraged to be sexy, but not too sexy. Some are told nothing at all, leaving them to piece together their understanding from whispers and shame-filled silences. Regardless of the specific messages, most women internalize the idea that their sexuality must be managed, hidden, or given only under certain conditions. This breeds confusion and disconnection. When a woman doesn't feel safe or empowered in her sexuality, she often loses touch with a core part of her identity. She may start to define herself based on roles: mother, wife, professional, caretaker, while neglecting the part of her that is deeply personal, instinctive, and sensual. And over time, this disconnect can dull her spark. She might feel like she's going through the motions, living from the neck up, constantly stuck in her head. Her body becomes something she dresses, feeds, and pushes through the day, but no longer lives in. That disembodiment is not just physical, it's emotional. It creates a gap between who she is and how she feels. On the other hand, when a woman is attuned to her sexuality, her confidence often radiates from within. This isn't about being loud or extroverted. It's not about appearance. It's about a settled, undeniable sense of self. A woman who feels connected to her body knows what she likes. She knows what she deserves. She has clearer boundaries because she knows what feels good and what doesn't. She trusts her gut. She walks into a room not needing approval, but bringing presence. This kind of confidence is not the result of performing or pretending. It comes from deep alignment with one's own truth. Emotional well-being is also directly impacted by sexual fulfillment. The body is designed to experience pleasure. During sexual arousal and orgasm, the brain releases chemicals like dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, lifting stress, reducing connection, enhancing hormones that help regulate anxiety and depression. But beyond the chemical benefits, there is a psychological impact. When a woman gives herself permission to feel, to explore, to say yes and no freely, she experiences emotional freedom. She stops suppressing her needs and begins honoring them. She stops trying to be what the world wants and starts becoming who she truly is. Many women believe that confidence and emotional health should be addressed first, and that sexuality will follow, but often it works the other way around. When a woman starts healing her relationship to her body, reclaiming her pleasure, and releasing shame, she often finds her voice. Her confidence doesn't come from external validation. It comes from internal connection. And as she becomes more at home in her own skin, everything else begins to shift. She sets higher standards in relationships. She becomes less tolerant of situations that drain her. She starts making decisions from desire, not fear. That shift is profound, and it's not superficial. It's foundational. Sexuality is not something extra or indulgent. It's part of the architecture of emotional wellness. When ignored, it creates tension, frustration, and sometimes even physical symptoms: fatigue, anxiety, numbness, or chronic dissatisfaction. When embraced, it becomes a source of vitality and joy. But in order for women to feel that, they need permission, first from themselves, and then from the environments around them, to be whole, to acknowledge their sexuality as valid, to stop separating who they are from what they feel, to stop believing that being sexual undermines their intelligence, professionalism, or worthiness. The more a woman is able to integrate her sexuality with her identity, the more aligned, confident, and emotionally resilient she becomes. Cultural shame disconnects women from their bodies and power. It happens so subtly and so early that most women don't even recognize it as shame. They think it's just the way things are. From the moment a girl becomes aware of her body, the world starts sending messages. Cover up, sit properly, don't attract the wrong kind of attention, be careful what you wear, don't be too loud, too bold, too visible. The message is loud and clear: your body is dangerous, your desire is suspicious, and your sexuality must be contained. That message doesn't come all at once. It arrives in glances, in comments, in rules, in silences, but it lands deep. As girls grow into women, the shame becomes more sophisticated. It's woven into expectations and double standards. A woman who expresses sexual confidence is labeled as inappropriate or desperate, while a man doing the same is praised for being assertive or charming. Women are told to be attractive but not too sexual, desired but not desiring, modest but available. The boundaries are impossible to follow because they constantly move, and the punishment for getting it wrong is judgment, rejection, or worse. That creates a constant undercurrent of self-surveillance. Am I too much? Am I not enough? Do I look okay? Is it safe to speak up? Should I shrink? This kind of shame does not just impact behavior, it impacts identity. When a woman internalizes the belief that her body is something to be ashamed of, she disconnects from it. She learns to live outside herself, to prioritize how she's perceived over how she feels. Her body becomes an object she manages instead of a place she inhabits. She looks in the mirror and sees flaws instead of strength. She learns to associate her sexuality with guilt, secrecy, or performance. Even in private moments, even with herself, she may feel hesitation, embarrassment, or a sense that she's doing something wrong just by wanting to feel good. This internalized shame can also make it difficult for women to ask for what they want, not just sexually, but in all areas of life. When you are taught not to trust your desires, when you are conditioned to be small and polite, it becomes nearly impossible to advocate for yourself without guilt. That's not because women lack assertiveness. It's because they've been trained to fear what will happen if they use it. Will I be called selfish? Will I be seen as aggressive? Will I lose love or approval? This fear is not imagined. It is built into the structures around us, and it keeps women in a state of quiet compliance. Cultural shame also impacts how women relate to each other. Instead of solidarity, it often creates comparison and competition. Women are pitted against one another in terms of beauty, desirability, and behavior. Slut-shaming, body shaming, and moral judgment become tools used not just by society, but by women against themselves and each other. This doesn't happen because women are cruel. It happens because shame thrives in silence and secrecy. When you're taught to suppress a part of yourself, you begin to resent anyone who expresses that same part freely. It feels threatening, it feels unfair, but that tension isn't between women. It's between women and the culture that taught them to fear their own power. Religious doctrine, traditional values, media portrayals, and educational systems have all played a role in reinforcing this shame. In many cultures, women's sexuality is tightly policed, virginity is glorified, female pleasure is ignored or erased, sexual curiosity is punished. These messages don't disappear just because a woman turns 18 or gets married. They stay lodged in the psyche. They show up in the inability to relax during intimacy, in the fear of being vulnerable, in the reflex to apologize for wanting something. This is not just personal, it's generational. Shame gets passed down like an heirloom, and it often takes conscious effort, reflection, and community to break that cycle. Shame has a language. It says, "You're too loud, too needy, too emotional, too provocative." It whispers, "You don't deserve this. You asked for it. You should know better. You're not likable if you're honest. You're not lovable if you take up too much space." And the more a woman listens to that voice, the smaller she becomes. She second-guesses her instincts. She doubts her own worth. She seeks permission instead of trusting herself. That is the power of shame. It convinces you to abandon yourself before anyone else has to. What shame never tells you is that your body is yours, that your pleasure is valid, that your desire is natural, that your voice matters. Shame keeps women out of their bodies so they can be more easily controlled. Because a woman who is disconnected from her own body cannot fully access her strength, her clarity, or her joy. She moves through the world cautiously, guarded, always negotiating her safety and acceptability. She performs instead of lives. She endures instead of thrives. And it's all because of a system designed to keep her questioning herself instead of trusting herself.